Every problem you've ever tried to fix started in the wrong place. You rearranged the furniture while the foundation was cracking. You changed jobs, ended relationships, moved cities, and the same patterns followed you like a shadow stitched to your feet. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why external effort without internal alignment produces nothing lasting, and what the oldest mental science tradition says you must do instead. Charles Haanel published the Master Key System in 1912 as a 24-part correspondence course. Students received one lesson per week, with strict instructions to master each before moving to the next. The structure itself carried a message: transformation is sequential, cumulative, and slow. There are no shortcuts through the architecture of your own mind. Haanel wasn't writing self-help. He was writing an operating manual for consciousness, and the first principle he established is the one most people spend their entire lives resisting. The world within creates the world without. That sentence sounds simple enough to fit on a coffee mug. Living it requires dismantling everything you've been taught about cause and effect. You were raised in a culture that treats the external world as primary. Something happens to you, and then you react. The economy shifts, and then you feel anxious. Someone criticizes you, and then you feel small. Haanel reversed this completely. Your internal state, your habitual thinking, your dominant mental attitude, generates the conditions you experience. The outside is a print. The inside is the negative. Think about a time you walked into a room already expecting conflict. Your shoulders were tight, your words came out clipped, and the other person, sensing your energy before you even spoke, matched it. The argument you expected arrived on schedule. You probably blamed them, but the confrontation was authored in your mind before a single word was exchanged. That's a small example. Haanel's claim operates at a scale most people find uncomfortable. He taught that every condition in your life, your financial situation, your health, your relationships, reflects the quality of your inner world with mathematical precision. The word he used was mathematical. He meant it. The relationship between thought and condition, in his framework, is as reliable as the relationship between a seed and its fruit. Plant corn, harvest corn. Plant fear, harvest circumstances that justify fear. The harvest never lies about the seed. So why do people keep trying to change the harvest? Because changing external conditions feels productive. You can measure it. You updated your resume. You joined the gym. You downloaded the budgeting app. Each action creates a small dopamine hit of progress. And 3 months later, you're in the same internal place you started, wearing different clothes. Haanel addressed this directly in his early lessons. He compared it to trying to change the image in a mirror by reaching out and rearranging the glass. The reflection changes when the object changes. The world without changes when the world within changes. Every other approach is cosmetic. This is where most people stall. They hear the principle and nod, then immediately ask, "So what do I do?" The question itself reveals the problem. They're still oriented toward doing, toward external action, toward manipulation of conditions. Haanel's first instruction was radical in its stillness. Sit in a chair, be still, control the body. That's lesson 1. The entire first week of the Master Key System involves nothing more than learning to sit quietly for 15 to 30 minutes without fidgeting. Why would a system about creating external results begin with sitting still? Because you can't direct a mind you can't quiet. You can't plant a deliberate seed in soil that's churning with weeds. The stillness practice exposes something most people have never confronted: how little control they actually have over their own thoughts. You sit down intending to focus, and within 90 seconds, your mind is replaying a conversation from Tuesday, planning dinner, worrying about a deadline, and composing a text message you'll never send. All simultaneously. That chaos is running your life. Every one of those scattered thoughts is a seed, and they're all germinating at once, producing the tangled, contradictory conditions you call my complicated life. Haanel's system builds week by week. After stillness comes mental control, the ability to hold a single thought without interruption. Then, visualization. Then the deliberate construction of mental images that correspond to desired conditions. Each stage depends on the previous one. You can't visualize effectively in a mind that won't hold still. You can't hold still in a body that won't stop fidgeting. The sequence matters because consciousness has layers, and you can't renovate the top floor while the foundation is still shaking. Here's where Haanel diverges from the shallow version of manifestation that floods social media. He never said thinking alone was sufficient, he said thinking was primary. There's a gap between those two ideas wide enough to lose yourself in. Thought creates the blueprint, action builds the structure. But action taken from an unchanged inner state simply reconstructs the old building with new materials. You've seen this. The person who leads a toxic relationship without healing the wound that attracted it. 6 months later, different name, same dynamic. The entrepreneur who builds a second business with the same scarcity mindset that collapsed the first. Different product, identical failure pattern. The inner change must come first. Action then flows from a different place, from clarity rather than desperation, from alignment rather than force. Haanel described this as the difference between power and effort. Power, in his framework, is silent, concentrated, efficient. Effort is loud, scattered, exhausting. You've felt both. Power is the morning when you wake up clear, move through your tasks without friction, and look up to find it's evening and everything somehow got done. Effort is the day you grind for 12 hours, accomplish 3 things, and collapse feeling like you've been swimming against a current. The current was your own resistance. Your actions were fighting your inner state instead of flowing from it. One concept Haanel returns to repeatedly is the solar plexus as a metaphor for the central distribution point of mental energy. When this center is functioning, when your inner world is coherent and directed, energy radiates outward and magnetizes corresponding conditions. When it's disrupted by fear, doubt, or contradiction, the energy scatters. You become like a lamp with a cracked lens, throwing light everywhere and illuminating nothing. The metaphor is over a century old, but the experience it describes is immediate. You know the feeling of internal coherence, and you know the feeling of being fractured when half of you wants one thing and the other half is terrified of getting it. That fracture is what makes external manipulation so appealing. When you're split internally, changing something outside gives you the illusion of progress without requiring you to face the contradiction within. Rearranging the mirror, Haanel's system demands that you sit with the fracture, identify which thoughts are creating it, and deliberately replace them. He called this process mental diet decades before Neville Goddard popularized the term. Every thought you entertain is food. Some nourishes, some poisons. You are responsible for what you consume mentally with the same seriousness you'd bring to what you consume physically. The discipline this requires is genuine. Haanel never pretended otherwise. Controlling your habitual thought patterns means catching yourself dozens of times per day in the act of thinking thoughts that contradict your desired state. You want abundance, but spend the afternoon calculating what you can't afford. You want love, but rehearse conversations proving you'll be rejected. You want health, but inventory your symptoms every morning like a collector admiring a dart collection. Each of those mental habits is a seed, and each one germinates precisely. A skeptic within the tradition might ask, if the world within creates the world without, why do children born into poverty suffer? Why do natural disasters strike without regard for mental states? Haanel's framework addresses this at the level of collective consciousness and inherited mental patterns. The idea that you're born into a stream of thought that precedes you, and your work is to redirect your portion of that stream. The system acknowledges that you don't start from a blank slate. You start from the accumulated mental patterns of your environment, your upbringing, your culture. The work is to become conscious of those patterns and choose which ones to keep. That choosing is the entire practice. Week after week, lesson after lesson, the master key system circles back to the same axis. You are the thinker of your thoughts, and your thoughts are the cause of your conditions. When you truly absorb this, when it moves from intellectual understanding to lived recognition, something shifts that can't shift back. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop waiting for conditions to improve before you feel better. You start feeling better first, deliberately through controlled internal work. And then, with the quiet predictability Haanel described as mathematical, the conditions begin to correspond. The gap between where you are and where you want to be has never been an external distance. It's an internal one. Every mile of it runs through your own habitual thinking. You can drive across the country, change your name, reinvent your wardrobe. The mind you bring with you unpacks the same suitcase in every new city. Haanel wrote the final lesson of the Master Key system. about the power of concentration applied to a single definite purpose. 24 weeks of training, building toward one thing. The ability to hold a clear mental image of what you intend to create, without contradiction, without wavering, long enough for the world without to catch up to the world within. The mirror eventually reflects the new image. It has to, but only after you stop reaching for the glass and turn your attention to the only thing you were ever meant to change.